My name is Ava or Ava B, and today I'm going to be doing the authortube newbie tag. However, I'm technically not a true newbie to authortube. Back in 2021, I made a mixture of both reading and writing related content, and then I took a 3-year-long hiatus. I have since decided to make my return to authortube, this time with much more of a focus on writing related content, largely due to the fact that I have missed writing so much, and I've especially missed how back in 2021 when I was making videos about writing, I have never felt more creatively fulfilled and more engaged with the practice of writing in my everyday life. I've made 3 videos since making my return, and I haven't talked too much about the sort of things that have driven me to take my hiatus and sort of the things that I've been doing in the meantime, because honestly, there isn't that much to say. It's just that I stopped writing and that I am back and I need to just get back to writing as quickly as humanly possible. And I thought that this video would just be a really good opportunity for me to sort of reintroduce myself as a writer and kind of remind myself that I am a writer and that I actually do have something to share. But first, just a little bit about me for any of you that are new here. My name is Ava or Ava B. B is my middle name, and it's what I like to go by here on the internet. I turned 19 a few days ago, so I am pretty young. I was pretty young when I first started this channel. I'm from Canada, and I think that's all I need to kind of get out of the way. Those are the most basic facts about me. And yeah, let's just get into the tag. Okay, so the first question is, how did you discover authortube? I obviously have looked at these questions before filming this, and I didn't know what I was going to answer until just now I realized that, let me actually find the exact name of the creator I'm about to mention. Yes, Christina Horner. This one here, writing a book in a month, filmed every day of November. This video I vividly remember watching and just being amazed by the fact that she was able to do that, to write a book in a month. And so I think that she was probably my first introduction to authortube. But honestly, I've been on the internet for so long, and I've always, my entire life, I've been interested in writing and reading, that I kind of just feel like authortube has always existed in my mind. It's always been something that I've sort of vaguely been familiar with. The second question is, what genres do you write in? Which I'm sure like most authors, I don't have a super straightforward answer for that. The project that I spent much of my time on here back in 2021 documenting is a young adult contemporary crossed with a mystery. It basically never knows which one it wants to commit to being. And then my 2 other novel projects that I have going on in my brain right now, one of them is a horror, but kind of like with a bit of like general fiction, literary fiction appeal. And then the third one is a romance, but also like a sports drama. So I don't really have a straightforward answer for that. I will say that I think I've always been drawn towards sort of the mystery, horror, thriller, sort of darker side of fiction, but I do also love just a really classic literary fiction, contemporary. But yeah, I'm kind of all over the place, but most of my story ideas have some sort of darker element running beneath them. The third question is preferred writing tense, point of view, and category of story. My preferred tense is past tense. I don't think I've ever done any writing in present tense, although sometimes I will switch up randomly in the middle of a draft, and then it's only when I read it over later that I'm like, what were you doing? Point of view, my project that I previously mentioned is all done in first person. However, in the future, I think I'm going to be transitioning into third person, even though I'm kind of terrified of doing that because I'm so used to writing in first person. And category of story, I don't really know what that means. Does it mean novel? Does it mean novella? I don't know. So we're just gonna go with novel. Then the fourth question is plotter or pantser. I would say I'm a pretty strong plotter, but I always end up straying from the outline that I create. I think what I do is I outline at the start of the project, and then as I write, I continue to add and make changes to the outline as I go. I think you will pretty much never catch me ever completely pantsing a story. I cannot imagine doing that just with my writing process. I think that I really need a sense of direction. I say that knowing that I've written drafts before where like I don't know how the ending is gonna go. But I think especially in the first part of the project, I'll say that, like first part of the project, I need an outline to go on. I need to feel like I have some idea of what direction we're going in. But I think every writer has a mix of both in them, and I think it also depends a lot on the project, because I think obviously some stories are a lot more reliant on structure, and if things are not outlined or thought out properly in advance, the draft could turn out like very, very messy and confusing upon reading it. The fifth question, are you self-published, published, or yet to be published? I am yet to be published, which I don't think is surprising considering my age. Publishing is something that is not super high on my list of priorities right now. However, I will say that in like several years from now, when that is something I would be looking into, I do want to pursue traditional publishing over self-publishing, but I think that self-publishing is something that I'm going to be opening my eyes a lot more towards, especially because I find with the brief amount of time that I've spent since returning here to the online writing community, I've kind of forgotten of how many self-published authors there are out there in the world, out there on the internet, and I can definitely see my perspective shifting in favor of being self-published. But like I said, publishing is so not something that's on my mind. I just want to focus, well, right now what I want to focus on is just starting to work on something. But now seeing how many people on here are pursuing self-publishing and how many resources there are about self-publishing, it's definitely something that I want to pay more attention to and consider more as a potential option. If you're not published yet, what is your dream publishing house and or literary agent? So going with what I just said, publishing is not one of my priorities. So I think my only real thing that I have to say in response to this is that since I am Canadian, I do think it would be cool to get a Canadian literary agent or publishing house or whatever. I am not knowledgeable about publishing, as I just said. I do know that a lot of the publishing industry here is based out of Toronto, which is not where I live. And I also know from one of my creative writing professors, I asked her, how many authors do you know that have Canadian literary agents versus American literary agents? And she pretty much said, it doesn't matter. So I don't really have an answer to this question other than I do want to do my best to support the Canadian publishing industry and support Canadian presses. All of my current novel ideas are set in the same province that I'm from, and I think the fact that I am Canadian is very embedded within the work, even if it's just through the setting. But I have heard of Canadian authors being told, hey, change the setting to Washington, like people are gonna like it more. I'd like to believe that things are changing a little bit. I think that Canadian authors are getting a bit more recognition within Canada. The seventh question is, what kinds of authortube videos can we expect to find on your channel? Writing blogs are definitely what I made the most of back in 2021 and are definitely the sort of video that I enjoyed creating the most. I'm definitely going to be focusing more on vlog style content than advice style content. That is not something that I'm really interested in doing because I do not have the authority to be sharing that. I know you don't necessarily have to have a whole ton of authority, like what is even authority, but I want to focus more on just sharing my own personal writing journey and writing process as opposed to trying to share advice with other people and sort of act like a teacher of sorts. I think I'm going to be focusing on vlog content with a few sort of more sit-down style videos sprinkled in. I have ideas, but vlogs are definitely what I like to make the most. The eighth question is, when did you start writing? So pretty much like every other author that has probably ever answered this question, I have been writing since I could hold a pencil. That's not true though. You do not need to have done that to be a successful writer or to write, period. I feel like it's been easy for me to forget that sometimes, that I was literally like 5 years old writing little stories. I was also raised by two very creative women in my mom and my grandma, who I think really nurtured my creative self back when I was younger. I also think that being on the internet at such a young age, as I previously mentioned, I did write fanfic. Never saw the light of anywhere on the internet, but it exists. And I think I need to remind myself a little bit more about the fact that, hey, this is something that you've literally always wanted to do. It's something that you have always found passion and enjoyment in doing. And so you should try to prioritize it a little bit more. The 9th question is, what was the first story you ever wrote? I don't know what the first story I ever wrote was, but the first novel project that I worked on was my previously mentioned one that desperately needs a code name, the one that Project Drowning, potentially. I'm working towards it, committing to a code name, but it is the project that I wrote the first draft in 2020, but the characters have been with me since 2018, and then I wrote first draft, second draft, third draft. I'm always going to view that as my first book that I ever wrote, my first novel. Will it be my debut? We shall see. Another story that comes to mind is when I wrote fan fiction, if you can call it that, of my 3rd grade class going on a trip to the moon. And then I had my teacher read it out. That was, I think, my peak, was when people were asking me to write about them in my story. Next question is, what authors have inspired your writing the most? I should have thought about this. I'm staring at my bookshelf. I probably should have grabbed some books to hold up. One of the first books to come to mind is The Handmaid's Tale by Margaret Atwood, because I just remember reading that book and reading the prose and being so impressed by it, and, you know, having that feeling of like, oh my gosh, I want to write a book like this. Also, Jandy Nelson, I'll Give You the Sun, possibly my favorite book ever. Donna Tartt, Stephen Graham Jones for horror. Kelly Lloyd Gilbert is a young adult contemporary author who rocked my world when I read Picture Us in the Light. The way that she creates characters and the character dynamics are just so realistic and messy, and that's definitely something that I want to incorporate in my own work, is just these messy friend group dynamics and relationship dynamics. Gillian Flynn as well, Sharp Objects is my favorite of hers. I can only imagine to write an ending as good as that. Next question. Do you schedule your writing sessions, or do you simply write when you have the time? I mean, it's been so long since I've actually incorporated writing into my daily routine that I just have to sort of dig back into my memory. I think generally write when I have the time, but that time pretty much always ended up being like 8 p.m. onwards. Like on a school night, back when I was in high school, it was always like between 8 and 9. And then like during the summer, it would probably be between like 8 and 10-ish. I've never really been a morning writer, honestly, like writing any time before like 3 p.m. But I really want to try to become one, because I think that just with the way that my schedule is changing or has changed, I think that's probably the better option, is to just write in the beginning of the day. Next question. Do you write on a computer, typewriter, or by hand, and where do you write in general? Pretty easy answer. I write on the computer, and I write at my desk. I can't see myself writing any way other than on a computer, on a keyboard. I guess with a typewriter though, you can write really quickly, but when I write by hand, my brain moves so much faster than my hand can move, even though my handwriting is very messy and chaotic. but I don't know, I guess there's something to be said about trying everything once, but where I am right now, the computer works perfectly fine for me. And then final question, what are you most looking forward to now that you're a part of authortube? I'm really just looking forward to getting back into writing, and I'm really looking forward to sort of embracing the creative side of making YouTube videos and figuring out how making creative YouTube videos about writing ends up being, I'm not articulating myself properly, but making videos about writing that are creative as well. It's like a double creative thing. It's like you're doing the creative act of writing, and then you're also doing the creative act of filming, of editing, of coming up with the concepts and putting together this sort of package of a YouTube video. And then within that, you're doing the act of writing. So those are all the questions. If you made it this far, I would love to hear a bit more about who you are, whether you're a part of authortube or not, but especially if you're a part of authortube. I would love to hear about what you're working on, maybe how long you've been in this community, any questions you may have for me. I know I said in my last video that my next video was going to be a writing vlog of starting my next novel project. I'm hoping that my next video will end up being a writing vlog because I really need to stop talking about writing and actually get to doing it. So if you'd like to hear more about where my writing journey goes, if you'd like to hear about my future novel projects, please subscribe. I do also have a backlog of my old writing vlogs still up on my channel if you would like to learn more about my past writing project and my writing process. As I said, my name is Ava, and I hope that you'll stick around. Thank you so much for watching, and goodbye.